Hey, James here. I want to talk today about something that I've been a little hesitant to talk about, but I also haven't shied away from bringing it up when I felt like it was appropriate. But that's because it's something that's mainly been taking a bit of a back seat in my life, but also very much apparent. For the most part, the videos and things I discuss online are about my shared lived experience with my eyes, and that is living life with legal blindness, with severe visual impairment. And there's this whole other thing, so I guess to put this into perspective real quick, think of me, a blind person, in the driver's seat, right? Going through life. My eyes, visual impairments are in the passenger seat. But there's been this really loud, quite obnoxious child in the back seat, and that is my ADHD. It's this thing that I try to ignore because I'm trying to keep my eyes on the road. I don't know if this is working, because a blind person using a driving analogy, I don't think that's working. Hopefully it's working. Stay with me for a second. I've been going through life the last few years with my eyes and trying to stay focused on that and working towards having a more accessible lifestyle. But at the same time, I've had this kid in the back, this obnoxious, loud thing that is very much distracting me, whether I want to admit it or not. As much as I try to ignore it or address it, it's distracting me, and that is ADHD. So I think I've been kind of quiet about my ADHD because I didn't want to talk about it really until I felt like I had it under control, or at least I was addressing it and making progress. And I've had it my whole life. It's in my medical records. It's been there since I was little. In fact, it was recommended that I take medication for it when I was like 8, as young as 8 years old. But I didn't start taking medication, I believe, until I was a teenager for it. But some flaws became apparent shortly after taking it. Now, it wasn't anything wrong necessarily with the medication. I have these two different disabilities, right? I have a cognitive disability in a way, ADHD. It's this disorder that impacts my brain and my way of thinking and what I can really give my mental energy to. As much as I try to combat it and try to address certain things, it's hard. It's an extreme internal conflict going on up there. And at the same time, I have a visual impairment. When I open my eyes, the world is visually distorted. It also hurts my brain to really try to even focus and use my eyes very much. So growing up, I grew up mainstream, in a mainstream school. If you've seen my videos about education in the past, you may know a little bit about my background. Having both visual impairment and ADHD, really, we tried to tackle both, but it was because I went about tackling my eyes kind of wrong that it impacted the way that I tackled my ADHD. Growing up, my teachers, my adults around me had an idea of what my vision was like, of what severe visual impairments are like for a child going through education. But they were incorrect with how to address it and how it actually, in real world experience, impacted me. And simply they just kind of shrugged it off like his eyesight is poor. It's as simple as that. One sentence: poor eyesight that can't be corrected with glasses or contacts. Well, what do? You make things bigger. Okay. That's what they did. They just enlarged papers, they enlarged books. Sometimes things were read to me by a teacher for tests and things like that, but that's because it was for timing purposes. But that didn't work. Maybe for a small extent of time it could have worked, but it didn't. And that is simply because the ocular conditions I have are much more complex than just poor eyesight. There's all these distortions and filters and connections with the nerves, which then are impacted by my brain and my energy and causes migraines. Just for context, I have ocular albinism, nystagmus, and astigmatism. Those are my three ocular conditions that are distorting my vision. So I never learned Braille. You'd think that that would be an easy way for me to be able to read significantly without ever having to use my eyes. Sure, it's a process, teach it and learn it, but had I been set up and supported with that, who knows, might be an efficient reader, but I'm not by any means. And then the other side of that is I do have ADHD. I was getting medication in my teens, in high school, for my ADHD. And at first, I think it was okay, but then things started happening. I would be up all night. I would have insomnia. Some nights where I would sleep, I'd wake up in a completely different place. I was sleepwalking. I'd wake up on a different floor of the house. Like, literally, I could wake up downstairs in the kitchen. And there was even a time or two where I woke up outside on a hammock, I think out in the yard. It just concerning things. And I think there was like irrational decision making that was happening with like friendships and relationship stuff. It was a mess. And a lot of this stemmed not necessarily at fault of the medication I was taking. Like, they tried changing the dose or maybe trying something else. But it's that because of the way that my eyes were being accommodated improperly, the side effects of that was then impacting how I was treating my ADHD. And for ADHD medication, typically, you need to take it early in the day, depending on the type. And you need to have the expectation that you're going to be up for a while, right? It's meant to be keeping you going throughout the day. And hopefully you get a good night's sleep after you've ran through all your energy. But what was happening was, in the morning when I take my ADHD medicine and I head off for school, I might be focused, I might be alert and trying to do my work, but at the same time, the way that my eyes are being accommodated, I was having to use my 10% of sight that was already fatigued and impaired and can really only be focused and used for about 5 to 30 minutes at most without needing to take a rest or a break. And then when you're doing that for 8 hours, where you really don't have a break, you really don't have that option to. What was happening was, after school, I was coming home and I would just collapse. I would just knock out cold, fall asleep for 2 to 4 hours. They always wondered why I never got my homework done. It's because I never had the time, quite literally, to do my homework. I couldn't. Because the ADHD medicine was still sort of in effect while I was passing out for these long naps, and not only that, but then just messing up my sleep schedule. The next morning, when then I had a lack of sleep or just an imbalance of sleep, I'd be taking my ADHD medicine so I can try to be productive at school in the way that they want me to. And it started to ripple into this domino effect of just symptoms and problems and side effects just all going wrong. I feel like most people don't have to deal with their eyes fatiguing to the point of migraines and then making them pretty much collapse in sleep for several hours. I'm sure it's not a common thing. It just isn't. After a lot of this sort of went down, I stopped taking the medication. That was a little bit of an adjustment, and I realized the behaviors that were sort of happening during that time period were abnormal, and the routines and tendencies that were coming about from just this poor use of the medication, but then just the lack of support with the other accommodations I really needed. I went through the rest of high school, pretty much my senior year at that point, without accommodating the ADHD, and I was relatively happy. I mean, I remember just my moods and my outlook on life significantly more upbeat and positive when I was 17, 18 compared to before then. And at that point, though, I was getting ready to move cross country and start my life someplace else. And I was going into a creative field. And that's honestly, this is a blessing to have ADHD in a creative field, because my brain does find solutions to unconventional problems, and the mentality of thinking with accessibility in mind, I think, really does help drive in this brain. So it is a blessing. But of course, when it comes to my work ethic, when it comes to trying to then, it's like, cool, you have all these ideas and innovation happening in here. How do you execute? How do you get that into structure and order and make something of it? That's where it's hard to self-discipline when you have ADHD. And I really noticed and became aware of how much it was impacting me as an adult this past year, when I'm mainly working from home, when I'm primarily doing any kind of freelance or any other work at home, where things are easily distracting, where it's all reliant on self-discipline. And as accessible and as accommodating as work from home is, and I love it and I want to just keep doing it, I just needed to figure out how to address cognitively, like, how my brain is handling everything in front of me, because it's been overwhelming. And I've been looking at several different projects, and I start putting a little bit of eggs into each of these baskets, but then I get overwhelmed with the amount of output and demand, and I don't structure or organize that flow, that workflow. I feel like I'm doing a lot of word vomit here, but I'm trying to formulate and make sense of these thoughts. For the last 3 months, I've been trying to get back on an ADHD medicine, something that's fairly strong. And I'm not going to go into the details of what I'm taking, why I'm taking it, not right now, at least. So it's been a bit of a struggle, though. I moved back across the country again this past year, trying to contact old hospitals and doctors, and then even trying to get in touch with new doctors, and trying to figure out who's available. Oh, there was a wait, or this wait is not until 2022 I can get an appointment with them. Okay, oh, but then who takes your insurance? And then anyway, I managed to finally hunt down and obtain records that I have ADHD, that I was medicated for it, and eventually, once I got that was enough for my primary to sign off on a prescription, and it's addressed. I'm medicated now for my ADHD. Today's day 1, by the way, taking it, so if I'm a little jittery, that is why. Oh man, I'm happy, because as an adult now, I don't take these 3, 4, 5-hour naps that I once did. That doesn't happen because I'm not forced into an environment where there's a grind and a work that isn't well accommodated for myself. The work that I do, I can accommodate myself. I can do it on my own terms. I know my assistive technology. I know if I need to go walking into the city, I have a white cane, soon a guide dog, to help relieve the visual fatigue on my eyes. The focus that would be up here goes into my ears, into my tactile, and I can just use vague context clues of color from my vision without really trying to just be aware. And that's where I'm at. And I'm just relieved. I'm very happy that I made progress with this. My conclusion is, just wanted to give a little bit of a life update. So I'm really hoping this helps with my content creation, with my personal discipline of work ethic, and I'm also just wanting to let you know, if you are balancing 2 different disabilities, right, that are quite different, but you're not being accommodated for one, or you have one situation that is just not well supported, well, that outcome of that is probably going to significantly impact whatever else is on your plate. Yeah, just wanted to let you know what's going on. Working on some really cool videos, some really just new things that I'm very excited to share and get out to you. But I'm also just really glad that in the process of making such content, I'm on I'm on some medication for this ADHD. It's going to help with my workflow to get this going. Let me know in the comments, how are you doing? I just simply want to know how you're doing. Right now, I've had a lot on my plate. I've been pretty stressed the last few weeks. A lot of uncertainty and things out of my control. And that's okay. I'm pretty content with that. But just the amount of it, the amount of input has been overwhelming for me. So getting this checked off the list, getting this addressed, which will help me process everything else that's going on, I'm happy with that. So let me know how you're doing. Hope you're well. Hope you're keeping safe. I hope you could see different today. I'll hear you next time. Bye.